We're here.
I wish I could get this feeling. I wish I could get this feeling. On the corner.
What up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Corner Podcast. Kel Dansby here with the old man Andreas Hale. Bullet Clubbed out, except for the hat. Kamala.
The Ugandan headhunter.
Yes. Nah, it's not a wrestling podcast today, believe it or not. We are talking boxing and MMA to start off this week, specifically to start off this show, MMA, because it's a pay-per-view week. And we have UFC 285 to preview the return of the GOAT, in many people's eyes, Jon Jones, his debut at heavyweight. We'll talk about the card, which is actually pretty intriguing to me, going down the main card. We'll talk about that. Also, we have a guest that may or may not be joining us right now. It's a busy week. UFC's here in Vegas, so we'll keep you guys posted. But we are trying to talk today to Jalen Turner, who's on this card, a huge spot for him. So if we can clear this up and get our schedules right, we'll talk to Jalen at the end of this. If not, you guys are just going to have to hear us talk about UFC all the way throughout. And then later on in the week, in a couple days, we'll be talking boxing. Make sure you guys check out that show as well. We're saving wrestling for last this week. A lot of stuff going on there. WWE, Road Tours WrestleMania. We have AEW preparing for a pay-per-view coming up.
Yep.
It feels that's right around the corner. It's like a
Sunday.
week away. This Sunday?
Yes.
Yo, it's March already. I forgot it was March.
Yes, it is March.
Yeah, February goes. It felt like it went slow, but now it's like, oh, it's over.
Black History Month is over.
It's a wrap.
28 days.
What is March?
Women's
History Month?
Yeah.
All right, cool. We into another one. Good.
St. Patrick's Day. Excuse to get drunk.
Hey, be in Vegas this time? We going out? It's so hard to get you and the wife out. Come on, let's go. Let's drink some green beer. I'll come to you. I'll come to your side of
I
town.
got kids, man. I got kids and
Heath
got
Slater.
jobs and kids. I don't know if I'm eating. I don't know. Maybe. Doubt it. Doubt it.
So I'll FaceTime you and cheers you guys.
Yeah,
from a bar or something.
I'm kind of on an alcohol hiatus. Some low carb dieting for a minute.
That's good.
Yeah. So
Before Mania? Like, what, are you
Well,
carrying
yeah,
this through Mania? or-
No, because I'm cashing my brunch bet at WrestleMania.
Okay. You don't have to. It's okay.
Oh, I am.
It could be a dry WrestleMania.
is
You don't
LA?
got to catch the
Mm-mm.
brunch.
No.
I'm sure you will pick a fine spot
Oh yeah.
for this brunch bet Mania weekend. But no, yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So much coming up. But this week, UFC is right here in our backyard in Vegas. I feel like finally people are coming in. The town is busy, but it's mostly because of like conventions.
Yeah.
It seems like people in the back here of the studio, like tons of convention people. But the strip is starting to pick up steam. And before we dive into last weekend's event and this weekend's, the ambiance of this, do you feel like, and this has always been the big question, Jon Jones, it's hard to argue that he's the greatest UFC fighter of all time. Is he a draw?
No. Well, what's a draw, right? Like,
Is he bringing people out? I'm done with pay-per-view buys. Like,
yeah.
in terms of being a draw, I'm done with it. If you knock something out of the park, pay-per-view wise, I'll give you an extra credit, like star. You get an A++ as a draw. But that's not where I gear stuff towards being a draw. Are people talking about the fight? Because a lot of people are going to bootleg it, whatever.
Yeah.
Are people talking about the fight? Are people hyped for it? Did people come out to Vegas for it? Who's at Dre's? Like we
already know this is
discussed.
not. Yeah, this isn't a Drake type of party.
No, but we've discussed like a new system for if you are a draw. Is Jon Jones a draw?
I said no because he wasn't previously, but he's been gone for 3 years. So it's a debut in a new weight class. It is the guy who many have acknowledged as the GOAT, making his heavyweight debut. I don't think we've ever seen anything like this in terms of a fighter disappearing for 3 years and then showing up was like, you know what? I'm just going to fight in another weight class. And that's what Jon Jones did. Like, he stepped up and fought he's fighting in a different weight class. So the intrigue is different. We'll see what happens if he comes out victorious. Then we'll kind of know he's a draw. This is kind of a novelty of sorts, but he's never been like a draw. And I don't know if the UFC's done that intentionally or if John has done everything illegal outside of the octagon to make him a draw. So maybe he's a draw.
But so he's more infamous than famous.
Yeah. I mean, everybody says, "Oh, look, he banged his son on a cop car. Oh, look, he hit a pregnant woman and had left hot Cheetos in the condom in the car." Like all those things are interesting, but does it make you want to see him fight more? I don't. For us, sure, but we're gonna watch the fights anyway. So does he draw the casual fan? Is always the question, and I don't know if John's that kind of a draw.
Yeah, it's just interesting the life, the back and forth of a Jon Jones when you look at everything he's done in the octagon. The time away, sure, that hurts. Usually hurts people, hurts their performance, definitely. It didn't hurt his quote unquote brand though.
No.
When you look at it, he's still as in demand as he was before. There's still a litany of people buying the fake smile, the cheese grin.
Are they? I don't think anybody's buying that. I think everybody's past that shit.
Really?
Yeah, I think everybody knows John's a dickhead.
I don't know. No.
I think
People are like rooting for his return now. It's kind of like you take someone off TV in pro wrestling, and then when they come back, they're always a baby face.
Yeah, but they didn't, again, they didn't pop for PEDs. Like John's always been like a fraud. Like
Domestic violence calling here.
Yeah, like, I mean, we go through all the things that John has done. He's lived life. He's done the Gervonta Davis, but he doesn't sell like Gervonta Davis. And he's older than Gervonta Davis. But it's like domestic violence, hit and run. Like Gervonta's done the same thing.
Yes, he has.
And it feels like Tank and Ryan's going to do bigger than this in pay-per-view buys.
100%. In overall ambiance, it's going to be...
That's a different story. Like you're talking about urban loitering. John doesn't do the urban loitering.
No.
John doesn't bring us out.
I don't think the UFC really does urban loitering.
They don't welcome that shit. They welcome, mosh pits and shit.
When
like
do
that.
we get it? When do we get
We don't.
that star?
We don't. As long as Dana White's running the
Jamal
UFC.
Hill could lean into it.
No.
I don't that's not really in his personality.
Nope. Because the other thing, and we've talked about this before, is like, unfortunately, the black talents in UFC, some of them are just fuckboys.
Yeah, but when do you get the real one? Not even the real one.
That's
Like
what I'm
when do you
saying.
get like the person who's like not unapologetically black as we may use it sometimes, but those who are like, yo, me and my homies, like who replace C's with K's,
Yeah,
like shit like that, right? Like when do we get like the gang banging dude in MMA? Like
we don't. It doesn't foster that culture. Like Gervonta,
somebody's gonna kick the door in.
if the UFC lets them, right? Like the UFC controls the narrative, whereas boxers control their own narrative. So Gervonta Davis they were smart. Again, Leonard Ellerbe and Floyd Mayweather's like, put him in Atlanta, put him in all the black places, and everybody cheer for him. Make sure the celebrities come out, the black celebrities and the athletes. Like he's had a groundswell of African American support. There is not a single fighter. Israel Adesanya is like the closest one who has had true support from the community.
And still people look at him kind of like he's
He's not even from here.
no, like he's nerdy and blah blah. And yeah, he's not from here.
He's not from here. That's the problem. But that's like they didn't do that for DC because we didn't identify with DC. They didn't do that for John because he doesn't identify with us.
Yeah.
Then who's left? Like Aljo, but he hasn't won enough.
Rampage is the closest we've gotten.
Yeah,
Because Rampage don't give a fuck.
I mean, Rampage Rashad was like the blackest beef that we had in MMA.
Yeah, and it's two very different type of black.
Right, and it was great.
It was great.
Even that didn't bring out like urban loitering. Like Conor McGregor does that more than anybody else. Conor McGregor brings us out more than anybody else.
But they were before their time. But yeah, Conor does because Conor's flashy. Conor in the club.
Yeah, he looked like we're like,
he
oh,
does shit we do.
Trying to be like us.
Like he's adopted the like Floyd Mayweather gimmick.
Yes,
And that's why Floyd brings
Exactly.
people out. Eventually, they are going to get a black fighter who has the black Floyd Mayweather gimmick.
man, I don't know who it could be. It feels like
He's gonna be making it rain in the octagon. He's going to be.
here's the other
that
problem.
level.
The other problem is the UFC doesn't allow you to have your personality. Like, for instance, all the things that Adrian Broner did, and I'm not even talking about like fighting, not talking about brushing his hair. I'm talking about even the walkout. You can't do that in the UFC. You can't bring out a rapper with you,
No.
even though a lot of
Not
that shit
yet.
is trash. A lot of shit is trash. But that's
You have to
mine.
really
Except for
be
mine.
transcendent.
Mine was not trash. Bring it out. The segments I've produced have been incredible. But what I'm saying is, like, if you had Aljamain Sterling and have Nas walk him out, right? That's something that would connect with the community. But you have Aljamain Sterling just walking out. There's no personality there. You don't see them anywhere except when it's time to fight and on social media. And so it's like, with Gervonta, again, he's fought in all these places. Like with Deontay, yeah, J-Rock walk him out. Like he said, like Errol Spence Jr., like they have the community walk them out. Like it feels like they're into it's not like that in MMA.
See, but you can do that without specifically being in the moment, right? Because a lot of it in the moment is for MMA fans.
Yeah.
A lot of that in the moment was for boxing fans, and then it trickles out. You can start outwards and trickle in. Like if you got someone who's on like a Conor McGregor or even Francis Ngannou style like knockout run, if Francis was like from here with that power, you could be at the Drake concert, you could be at the Lil Baby concert.
The UFC's not going to promote that. They're weird.
No, they can promote whatever. Like Sean O'Malley promotes whatever he wants outside of that. They have now
Dana likes
had
him.
to acquiesce to it. Dana likes him for now until he asks for too much money. But
look, Tyron Woodley was one of the best welterweight champions of all time. He was from Ferguson, Missouri, was in straight out of Compton. They didn't push him at all. He had a rap song.
He wasn't flashy with it.
No, he wasn't one of Dana's boys. Like, let's just keep it a buck. Like, unless you're under the support of Dana White, like unless Dana likes you, it's very difficult for him to. Because what does Dana do all the time? If you don't take a fight, he don't want to fight. It may not even be that.
Yeah,
like he finds ways to malign his fighters and then minimalize their accomplishments. Or with others, in the case of Sean O'Malley, motherfucker gets the number 2 contender, and he wins a very close fight, and now he's got a new deal. Or Patty Pimblett. Like there's certain people that Dana White's, as long as you preach that message, but somebody who look like us and act like us. We're not going to the Republican National Convention with Dana White.
No.
We're not hanging out with Trump.
No, not at all.
We're not supporting Andrew Tate. I'm just saying, like, this is all the elements of what the top guys in the UFC like. Whether they look like us or not, it's a very similar personality. I guarantee you if we did an MMA show, like...
I'm not sure Conor has any of those allegiances.
You sure?
I'm not positive.
I guarantee you he's not against Trump.
I don't know if he cares.
But again,
he's indifferent, so that's good enough.
They would say, "Hey, we need you to show up with Dana, with Henry Cejudo at like some shit with whoever the fuck, Candace Owens." You think I'm going to that shit? No. Hey, Jason Whitlock wants to hang out with you.
Keep him out of MMA.
But I'm just saying, like this is the culture that is fostered within the MMA community, and here we are as still outsiders to this culture. Like, there's a reason why these fights still, like, Face the Pain was like the song for so goddamn long.
Is it not?
That's what I'm saying. But Face the Pain,
it still is.
It's a shitty song for a certain group of people, like shitty music. Sure. It's not for us. It's just, it never has been, and I don't know if it ever will be because of the man who's on top. Like, again, you mentioned Ngannou, you mentioned Adesanya, you can mention Kamaru Usman, who was shooting rockets with Russians. Like,
yeah, that's a whole
you're not.
shit.
Then we can't identify with that.
Managed by Ali.
We can't identify with any of that. So
I'm always of the opinion that it's only a matter of time, because
sure.
To me, and I was on somebody's podcast like a week ago or something, and I told him the same thing. I was like, MMA looks weird, and the crowd is weird, and the fans are weird at times, even though I'm a fan. But like their core audience is weird, and I got to remind myself that this entity is 30 years deep.
It's new,
and it's like looking at boxing in 1920, where there was like a black champion who transcended. Like Jack Johnson, that's like really like button up and like suit and tie and like slicked his hair down and like waved it out. Like there was a look and a mold and certain things you had to be. And then what was it? 40 years after?
Not Jack. Jack Johnson broke all the rules. He said, "I'll beat up your husbands and fuck your bitches."
No, he was crazy.
But that's
No,
what he did.
but I'm saying like when I look at like the photos and like he was like presentable in public.
Yeah, he was. But
So-
he was a big, scary black dude.
No, of course.
He
And
was
we have
frightening.
Francis Ngannou now. Like we had that. I'm saying we had like a couple of them. And even he was like presentable like in public. Like he looked a great black champion part. He said wild shit. And I'm saying for us, he looked
Well, yeah,
like a great black
that's what we
champion.
had.
Like that's it. That's where we are now in MMA. It's like we got Francis.
Dude.
Got Ngannou. I mean, excuse me, we have Adesanya. We had Francis.
Well, yeah, all the Nigerian Americans lost.
That's
And the Nigerians, they all lost.
we might run it back here in a second. Kamaru might come back up. But again, like you have like a couple to represent. And then you go to boxing 40 years after that. And you look at the Foremans, the Alis, you have the Joe Louis, you have all these guys, and then you trickle down to other weight classes. We're talking about Sugar Ray Robinson, one of the greatest ever. And that diversity kind of builds. And you have people like Ali who will speak up and do all these things. And then you fast forward 40 years after that, and the majority of the top names are black in terms of selling pay-per-views or foreign.
Yeah.
Like there's like the UFC crowd as it is today, the standard bro America
Yeah.
in 60 years of this sport, fam, you're barely holding on now.
Yeah.
Habib and everybody done came. Like you're cool. Like Dagestani's taking over this stuff. The Brazilians still running stuff. The jiu-jitsu still holds true. We just had Charles Oliveira, got Amanda Nunez, all that good stuff. Valentina's from Russia. Like there's black champions and Nigerians all over the place. Leon is black and Jamaican from the UK. Like
Jamal Hill's a black man from
like you are running into the problem of that bro culture, fam. You are losing out on, and sooner or later that's going to build and make it a place where not even Dana, if he's still around, like if he reaches Bob Arum status and he's around forever, not even Dana can like, you can't fight it. Bob Arum, his roster after, I mean, the entire time he started Ali, he's kind of always had black fighters
Yeah.
and Spanish fighters. But you look at it now, like that's not, it never tailored off. Jay Prince has a stable of fighters under Bob Arum knows. Dana can't avoid it forever. And that's how you look at the NBA,
Mm-hmm.
how that's transitioned over the past 60 years. You look at the NFL, how that's transitioned over the past 60 years. Black quarterbacks everywhere now. As soon as as soon as you go, the ball is rolling.
Yeah.
Major League Baseball is only like a weird spot. But even then, like the international crowd is taking over. Black people just don't want to play baseball. I don't know why.
It's economically difficult for black people to
Yeah.
play baseball.
So outside of that, though, like it's going to happen.
I don't know. Look, listen to everything you just said. The UFC is as diverse as ever in
Yeah.
terms of champions, top contenders, and it's still bro culture because of one man that sits at the top.
He's the biggest star in the company.
But that's what matters, right? Like, yeah, in the NFL you have black, but the league as a whole was the last one to do it. Because, I mean, you had like the fucking Washington Redskins and a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah.
But it became a little bit more progressive. The NBA is completely progressive.
Yeah.
Right? WNBA is well beyond that. Major League Baseball, it's like, well.
But even like the integration and like all the Negro League players coming over, it completely changed the game.
But that's not what the UFC does. Like, their Black History Month was, here's black guy beating up somebody. That was their Black History Month. Like, if you don't celebrate and discuss the culture, how can you push it forward, no matter who's your champion? Because, again, I keep bringing up Tyron Woodley because he was black. We talked to him.
Yeah,
We talked to
he's
him
on the
numerous
show.
times.
Yeah.
He wasn't, I'm just kind of here and, I'm black and, I went to, like, Ferguson, Missouri, he's black. Super
Like
black.
CB4 black.
Yeah, he's black. Like, he was black. And Dana did not like him.
Yeah.
He didn't like those messages. He didn't like who he was. He ran him down every time. And he was their fucking champion.
Yeah, that was ugly.
So as long as Dana is there, and Dana will deny this. Like if he heard this podcast, he'd be like, "That's a lie." It's true. You promote what you like. Like you talk about Bob Arum. You mentioned Jay Prince. Dana ain't getting in there with no Jay Prince.
No, not right now.
There's a reason why fighters don't have sponsors. There's a reason why fighters don't have individual walkouts the way that they do. They don't project their personalities because the brand is bigger than the fighters.
Yeah, when I watch Dana White, and again, I don't know Dana. I've asked him a question like 3 times in my life. That's the extent of the conversations. I'm not in meetings at ESPN with Dana White, like nothing. But I agree with you where you say like he'd blatantly be like, no, that's a lie. Right? Like he'd be like, no, that's not what I'm doing. That's not. And there is, and I'm not calling Dana White racist. I don't know Dana White. Like
Right.
I'm not going to say he's racist. I'm not just going to call people racist. But there is like inherent racism. And then there is just fostering a culture of exclusivity.
Yeah.
In all regards. And the UFC, to whether he meant to or not, he fostered a culture of the people he was probably around at the time and the people he either admired or wanted to be part of that group or whatever. Like, hey, I've trained a little bit. Like but he invited this culture and the people he invited in and gives floor seats to, who puts in commercials, who he sponsors, who he pushes up the cards faster than others. Those people, whether you mean to or not, give off this perception and fosters this culture and environment of your company.
Yes.
Where it's not conducive to people like us fighting, watching, anything.
No, it is. You are invited to be a part of our culture. We don't want your culture.
That's it.
So
Yeah, like if you fit into our culture,
Yeah.
Kamaru, if you act like this, I don't care what color you are.
Yep.
But you got to act like this. You have to be okay going with a Chechen or whatever, dictator and blowing shit up. You have to be okay that if we need, regardless of what president is in that motherfucker, they've never been there for any other president, but whatever. Regardless of what one is in there, and you are a champion, you got to be okay with going and presenting and blah, blah. Like, you have to, I think Donald Trump Jr. came to a fight. Yeah. You have to be okay with all of these things. You have to be okay with me speaking at the Republic National Convention. You have to be okay with everyone has free speech in all realms. Like, you have to be okay with how we get down. And that's the opposite of free speech in my mind. That's the opposite of free will. It's the opposite of inclusivity. Like you have to be a bro. Yeah, nobody wants to be a bro.
It's an alpha culture. Like it's an alpha male culture
by a bunch of beta people.
But it's like you have to fit in that culture. You get out, and Dana has created that. And yes, he's excluding other cultures. You can't even bring your flag to the octagon anymore to represent where you're from. Like the UFC is its own culture, and Dana oversees that culture. So if they cared, they do more. They do more for Black History Month. Remember Black Lives Matter? What was the UFC statement? Nothing. Literally nothing. And when the Sportsnista, a friend of ours, she shows up and asks Dana, "Are you going to release a statement?" He's like, "For what?" Tone deaf, like not even listening. You have black fighters in your company that are affected by the murder of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery. They were all affected. Everybody, even if it was fucking arbitrary or not, they did something. The UFC did nothing.
Doesn't fit their culture. It doesn't affect his life.
No, it does. It's
and
not
the
him.
People around him. Yeah, like he's not speaking out against it. But it doesn't affect his life. He doesn't need to speak on it. Now, if it did affect his life,
it's a different story.
He'd speak. He'd go. He'd parade around. He spoke at a huge convention.
Exactly.
Like he probably loves gun laws. I don't know.
Him and the Undertaker probably kick it.
That's chilling.
I'm just saying, like this. This is a culture that has been created by Dana White and these in the UFC. And to bring this back to the questions, like that's the reason we don't have a star that our culture accepts wholeheartedly. We like Israel Adesanya, right? But he's not going to break through and be that superstar for us in terms of that's what they've done with Gervonta. We've done like not even they've done it for themselves.
Yep.
The other part of this equation is MMA is so fickle in the sense that you're here today and gone tomorrow. We're going to talk about someone in this card who was a champion, Cody Garbrandt.
Oh, yeah. Quick, fast.
You in and out. In boxing, you can get these bloated records, and now people want to see you just knock people out. Like, we talk about Tyson all the time. It wasn't like Tyson was fighting world champions. Like, as soon as he became a world champion, they were like, go fight the toughest guys. Like, he didn't fight Evander Holyfield immediately. It's politics of boxing. But you fight enough people, and people go, oh, he's still knocking people out. You don't have that time in the UFC.
No.
Jon has had 20 fights in the UFC. In how long has he been here now? 13 years?
Yep.
That's insane.
16 of them. Well, this would be 21. 16 of them are for titles.
Yeah. How about this?
Nuts.
Like Jon should be that guy. And like as we talk about this card, like Jon has fought 20 wins. All but 3 of his opponents are either retired or have been released by the UFC. All of them are gone, right? He's like the long-standing champion. He's done everything. We don't fuck with Jon Jones. Look at him.
Yeah, he don't fuck with us.
I told the story on the podcast before when I interviewed him for AOL's Black Voices. We're going all the way back to right before he fought Ryan Bader. I interviewed Jon Jones because I told AOL, which was a website before the Huffington Post bought it, that, hey, this guy's next. They were like, all right, can you do a feature on him? Sure. Called Jon. I was like, hey, man, I think you're next. For Black Voices, the website's called Black Voices. Not all voices, Black Voices. Interviewing Jon about, his growing up, having football players for brothers, telling me he can't dunk a basketball. And we get to the part of the interview when I say, how does it feel because it's a sport that's been predominantly white that you can be an inspiration to young black and brown kids, especially saying things like, I can't dunk a basketball, but I can do this, and I'm really good at this. And he says, can you stop the interview? And he asked me to not ask that question because he doesn't feel comfortable answering that because I want to be somebody for all people. Excuse me? You want to do what? This is Black Voices. Why can't you just say that I could be an inspiration? I want to be an inspiration to everybody. Fuck you, Jon. I'm done. Like
that doesn't stop you from inspiring everyone else.
No,
it's
but
just
that's
a very specific.
It was
question.
this is before I knew he was a dickhead, right? Again, this is like 2010, whatever year it was. And I go, you know what? Fine, whatever. Like, I didn't think it, I thought about it. I didn't like it, but I was like, you know what? And I put it in there, I'll be an inspiration for everybody. Whatever. The interview runs. He beats Bader. He immediately gets a shot at Shogun, becomes champion. This person might get mad because I've revealed this, but fuck it, I don't care. I go to dinner with Rashad Evans. Somewhere after the Shogun fight, I believe, or before. This is before they really had beef, but I could tell something was wrong. Rashad, please, like, Jon's a fucking fraud. I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, he's a fraud, man. Like, he told me, he was like, he loves his drugs, his women. Like, he tried to copy my style with all suits because I treat him like a little brother. He's an egomaniac. He's like, he ain't one of us. And if anybody knew Rashad was the one person who was like the intellectual black champion.
Yeah.
And he's like, he's not one of us. Like, I try to talk to him about anything culture, and I was like, like he's an egomaniac. And then it came out he's an egomaniac. Years later, I saw Rashad, and I was like, yeah, you were right. He's like, I told you. And I was like, yeah, obviously I couldn't tell people that you told me that, but he told me. So we've never been able to identify with Jon because Jon doesn't want to identify with us. It's not his goal to be like the black champion. And I'm not saying like the president of the United States is the president of the United States. But Barack Obama knew when he was the president, I'm also representing black people. And he took that, Trayvon looks like me, and everybody shitted on him for that. That could have been my kid. Jon won't do that. Jon won't say it's Black History Month. Can we do something, Dana? Jon won't do that. He's not interested. Unfortunately, he's like the best fighter that's ever lived. But you can't help a person who doesn't care. And as we've seen now, especially on like social media, there are more Jon Joneses walking this earth.
Oh, 100%.
like we've seen like there's more Jason Whitlocks. And John's not on that level. We've seen people. We saw a tweet the other day. My man said, "Why aren't we talking about the slave owners that were good to their slaves?" Motherfucker, he owned people.
That's the tweet of the week.
He was like, "Yo, you had to keep them fed and keep them happy. Do you understand slave mentality?" This is a black man on Twitter saying this. Are you nuts?
He had slave mentality.
Right. Then the picture came out. He's like in the Scooby-Doo and he's Scooby and like you look like an idiot. But there's so many more people that like Andrew Tate that hate black women. It's like there is it's so strange that this culture has been fostered, but here we are. Jon Jones.
Hate strong women.
They hate black women. There's strong women and there's black women and there's strong black women. And and then you listen to them talk and it's like, how can you support Andrew Tate? Like if anybody hasn't watched the Vice documentary on Andrew Tate, I suggest you do so. A lot of people are like, I don't want to learn about Andrew Tate. Just do it. Because when you watch it, you'll be like, really? And then you see Aljo and Jamal Hill and Bobby Green all like, free Andrew Tate. There are plenty other people to free other than Andrew Tate.
They don't know any of them. Aljo should probably.
Aljo's, again, I like Aljo. He just should be smarter than that.
We've talked to Aljo on the show.
We talked to Aljo on the show. I've talked to him behind the scenes. I've talked to him for years. He should be smarter than that.
Yeah, it's
like Angie Hill and that's it. In terms of homies.
The environment of the UFC, and they do this like black fighters aside, it strips you from reality of those things going on in your community. Yeah. It kind of like we talked about, like you had to ingratiate yourself with their culture. It simultaneously strips you from the reality of your previous culture outside of them.
Yeah, look at Amanda Nunes.
Yeah, like
gay champion. Pride Month, did they do anything? No.
Like
Liz Carmouche, like go down the list.
They work really hard to strip you of your culture, and your identity becomes, I'm a UFC fighter.
Yes, I'm a company man.
And that's it. Like that's your identity. We barely got like the Nigerian saying I'm Nigerian. Like that was big.
Yeah.
And Kamaru painted his face and coming out with flags and like, oh, no flags.
Yeah, we got to stop that shit.
They strip you of not even just your individuality. They strip you of that culture and make you just be part of theirs.
And the best part about this is, if there are any black fighters who listen to this podcast, they'll feel slighted by us saying that. For the most part, they'll be like, no, I'm not like that. I'm not saying you're like that. I'm saying you're in that culture where all the opportunities I said that you can represent, you can't. Because they stripped you of it. Now you have to do it because you want to get paid, but you are not allowed to be you.
Nope.
You think you are. Keep going up that ladder, and then try it. Say, hey, Dana, can you invite Ben Crump to a fight? Let's see what happens. Barack Obama, he ain't been invited to no fights, but Donald Trump, he'll be there. But Donald Trump is also like pro wrestling mentality, so I get it.
Yeah, that's
like different. It's the great. Donald Trump is the greatest story of pro wrestling infiltrating politics that I've ever seen.
Like a DeSantis or someone weird. Or what's the gun lady?
I mean,
like if she's invited to some shit.
But I'm saying Ted Cruz will probably show up with a fight, but they're not inviting.
That's a Jorge Masvidal invite.
Right. Jorge Masvidal became this massive star, and is it surprising that he wears like Trump face masks and talks about Trump all the time? Colby Covington. Where else can that gimmick work? Can it work in the NBA?
No.
What's Ennis Freedom doing these days?
Yeah.
Talking about LeBron on Fox. Stop. You can't do that shit anywhere else. But the UFC is okay to do that. You can be that person. Can't be this person.
It's part of the culture. So yeah, it's interesting to, again, it's cool to have that quick aside. It wasn't quick.
No, it wasn't.
Conversation.
Sorry if y'all looking for predictions. They're coming.
That's such, for us covering it and for those who are fans of the sport, we see other sports preaching equality, at least trying to go and take these steps.
At least be performative about it.
Something. Because you never know if you're even performative, how that's going to affect those who are not performative.
Yeah.
Like, will Amanda then say, I'm not coming out with a Brazil flag, I'm coming out with the rainbow colors and everything because I now feel comfortable because you're fake comfortable. Like, you can empower me to do so. You never fucking you come out with like the fist or something. Like a fighter could win the title and like put the fist in the air or something. You open a culture to truly express yourself and have freedom of speech. Right now, you can express yourself if you agree with the culture and DNA of the UFC.
Yeah, if I was a fighter, my first UFC win, I'd have my coach bring out a 40, and I pour out a 40 to the homies. I'd just like to see how everybody react to that. Let's point out this 40 to my homies. Like Dana was like, "What's a 40?" First of all. And then,
Dana would love that shit.
would he?
Yeah, he from what I've seen, Black Beast, other fighters, and this is gonna sound bad, but I don't know how to phrase this any other way. He loves the performative Black culture.
Yeah, but
He does not like the real. Like if you point out a 40, it's like you'd be like, "Oh yeah, like I love this type of Black."
But then
people.
I get real serious.
He's like Snoop.
Yeah, like no, but see, then I get real serious.
Yeah,
like,
you get real serious.
I
He
pour
cut
out a
your
40
mic.
to the homies, and I talk about Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd.
No, he cut it. Yeah,
Eric
he
Garner.
cut your mic.
Yeah, then it'd be like, it'd be like they pull the mic away from me and
Yep.
be like, "Back to you, Daniel." Like, get this motherfucker
Yeah.
out of here.
If DC's doing an interview, you have DC like pull the mic away from
Yeah, I have to take DC down.
you. You're like, DC, you're gonna pull the mic, DC?
Hey man.
Like, you know what I'm talking about, DC. You go full Wilder to this day.
Hey.
Just in the
Hey,
octagon.
Deontay Wilder's word salad is extravagant. Like, that man just says words and puts them together, and then we'll talk about it in the box show. Like Deontay Wilder's world, but at least he did till this day. At least he talks about my Black brothers and sisters. At least I can give him that.
Something.
Shit.
All right. Before we dive into this weekend's card, we're just gonna roll through it. Want to talk real quick through some stuff that happened last weekend.
What a shitty card that was last week.
We're on a 2-fight winning streak.
We are though
I do not care. Brendan Allen's submission
in the main event.
in the main event.
Against Andre Muniz. Like, who saw that coming?
Because Krylov and Span got postponed the night of the event.
I mean, 90 minutes before the main event.
Not even the beginning.
No, as soon as the main card
Mid-show.
started, it was like, "Hey, we got bad news for you. That main fight that you was looking for, it ain't happening."
You here for 4.
Yep.
Go have an early dinner.
I was like, "That's interesting."
Yeah, so Allen talked to him on the show, and he was like, "Listen, I'm comfortable anywhere we're going. But looking at this, like, you're fighting a jiu-jitsu guy."
Okay.
I was like, you know what? I'm going to pick you to sub him. Just because I was like, that seems like the mentality, and he was so hype and really feels like he's figuring it out. And watching this, it was an even fight for a time, but he got the better everywhere to the point of when it was time to finish it, he did. Love that main event for him. The biggest thing of my night, though.
It's the biggest thing of everybody's night. This should have been the main event.
Tatiana Suarez is back.
Yeah.
No one's fucking with her on the ground.
No, well, look, she fought at a higher weight class,
Mhm.
and yeah, she had some difficulties getting Myra down early. But then she got her down. Sunk in that guillotine, it's a wrap. Now you're telling me she's going to drop back down 10 pounds? Good luck. My only concern with Tatiana Suarez is her striking, because she doesn't really.
Yeah, and there wasn't, again, when you miss that much time in the octagon, you can't replicate that. There's no real place to refine that. If she was healthy and going through, she would have had 3 years of striking under her belt, would have been a different animal.
Yeah.
But
I mean, what she
one
does,
hell of a one trick.
that's what I'm saying. What she does is really well, and she imposes her will. Like you could tell that the weight difference affected her a bit. Like she would go for hip tosses or headlock throws, and like she was like, "Shit, all right, she's strong," but she eventually got it down. 115, they're gonna struggle keeping Tatiana Suarez off them. But again, some of these girls can strike. If they got good footwork and can piece Tatiana up, I like to see how she navigates that. Erin Blanchfield showed the world like, "Hey, y'all don't know me for my striking. Watch this," and then beat up on Jessica Andrade and submitted her. Tatiana Suarez may be able to do the same thing. I just would like to see it. So I don't know where they go with it right now.
You know what it reminds me of? Someone else who was often injured, not a ton of fights when he was an animal, but we knew it. And striking was the question mark. Habib.
Yeah.
And Michael Johnson, for a quick second, pieced him up and around. He was like, I'm done with this. Took him down. It was a wrap.
Yeah.
This is what reminds me of like, they missed. There was a point where Habib missed so much octagon time that it was like, yo, you just got to toss him into the title fight because you don't know when he's going to be healthy. And Tatiana has missed a little more than that. But it's around like the same trajectory where it's like the grappling is so good that you can have the best striking in the world. There's no reason Habib should have been able, granted he had grown a lot since then, should have been able to stand with Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier. Stood enough.
Yeah.
Wrap their ass up. Justin Gaethje. Like, made Justin Gaethje look like nothing. The guy has the best leg kicks since Jose Aldo. Nothing. If she can develop that and use that, especially in the lower weight class, where she can use her strength, put people against the octagon, take them down from there, you got to run. You got to run, use your jab, because as soon as she corners you, it's over.
Well, you look at the top of that division. So Rose Namajunas, yeah, she could power out on Rose. I don't know if she could do that with Zhang, though. Weili Zhang is strong as fuck. So that's the one that I'm like, I don't know if you could just impose your will on her because nobody's really done it, right? Like Rose knocked her out. Tatiana's not a striker. But I'd like to see Tatiana Suarez and Rose Namajunas at some point because I'm very interested in that dynamic between striker and wrestler. But
if it's a main event, you got to go 5 rounds with that.
It's a lot to deal with. It's a lot of pressure.
Tough.
Like Tatiana Suarez is incredible at putting pressure on you. She cuts off the ring well. Like she does real subtle movements to like make the cage shrink. She's really good at what she does. I would like to see her fight Rose. I'm curious how that fight goes. I don't know who they pair up with back at 115. I don't know who their first fight is. Like, hopefully it's not like Michelle Waterson because he's just gonna beat the hell out of her. Right? Like
that. Cookie Monster is a good thing.
Yeah,
wrestler versus wrestler.
She already beat her.
I'm not counting anything
Yeah, well, all right.
from 3-4 years ago.
We'll see.
I mean, Cookie Monster won a whole nother title since then.
In a staring match.
Yeah.
Rose. Her and Rose did the Diddy and whoever the guy was in that show.
Sure, yeah.
That was that whole fight.
What was that? Like the X Factor?
Yeah,
I love that game.
It's the best. It's the best one ever. But that's the Rose and Carla fight.
No, that really is in a nutshell. And then now we can talk about this weekend's upcoming card. It's a good card, top to bottom. You mentioned
It is a good card.
Yes. We have Derek Brunson versus Duplessis.
Dricus Duplessis. Dricus Duplessis is really good.
Yes, he is.
Derek Brunson is that guy.
He's the gatekeeper.
He's that
He's
guy.
39. You could be a gatekeeper at 39. There's no shame in
He's a little better than the Neil Magny of the division, but he's that guy. Is like if you beat Derek Brunson, all right, cool, you can get up there. Dricus Duplessis is probably finishing this fight. But Brunson is good. I wouldn't count Brunson out. I think Duplessis is like a minus 200 favorite. And when I initially saw it, I was like, it's kind of high. And I'm like, nah, actually it's not. Duplessis is really good. I'm picking Duplessis by a finish.
I am too. But Brunson has stopped like prospects before. Or I'm just
Neil
like,
Magny did the same thing. He's a momentum stopper. He's a tough fight. I'm not saying he's going to steamroll him, but it's a litmus test. It's like, hey, if you want to get to the next level, beat this guy.
And I
does Derek have blonde hair still?
Every fight.
Yeah, he might lose that.
You don't like the blonde hair?
No.
He started doing that when he started like stopping prospects.
I know. Didn't we have him on the show?
We did.
With blonde hair?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
That's his thing, fight week.
Yeah.
Cody Garbrandt, Trevin Jones, who's a replacement.
I don't know what Cody is anymore.
I don't know what that chin is. I think the hands are still quick. I think he still has power. When the chin goes, it goes. I don't know how you strengthen that. Besides rest, it seems like he was rested.
I mean, hopefully that works. I don't know what's like the precipitous fall of Cody Garbrandt is one of the most astounding things because Cody Garbrandt was a man that you looked at and was like, that's a star.
He's 31 years old.
He's a kid. He's still a kid. Right? Like he
got in at 23.
It was quick. His ascent was quick. When he beat Thomas Almeida, everybody's like, all right, he's for real. And then he just zoomed up, and then he beat Dominic Cruz. He's for real.
He beat Dominic Cruz in his second year in the UFC.
Yeah, they moved him quick.
Yep, Almeida, Mizugaki, wrecked both of them, and then beat Dominic Cruz.
Right.
2 years in.
And then it was Dillashaw.
And again, this is why I'm never the whole like, oh, well, PED's in baseball. Don't put him in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
blah, blah, blah. Like, they're hitting a ball.
Yeah.
I get pitchers maybe can hit someone if you throw harder. Like, that's kind of scary. You don't hit people that often with a baseball.
No.
That's control. PEDs in combat sports is a world different.
No, you should go to jail.
100%.
You should go to jail.
Whatever Cody Garbrandt was and could have been, TJ Dillashaw robbed him of that because he was juiced to the gills and knocked his block off, in which Cody dropped him.
Yeah.
If you're not juiced to the gills, maybe you get knocked out like everyone Cody Garbrandt knocked out before. But he got hit by a guy, and you can't tell me any different. That was on everything. And it fucked up his chin. He's never been the same. Garbrandt should sue Dillashaw because he cost him an entire career worth of money.
Yeah, it's like Cotto should have sued Margarito.
Yep, 100%.
Margarito took years off of Cotto's life in that.
100%.
That being said, I still think about Cody Garbrandt knocking out Rafael Assunção and that last second up, like kind of sweeping hook.
Yep.
I think he gets a win here. He needs it. It's just watching Cody Garbrandt, I was like, damn, you were right there. You were everything the UFC wanted. And yeah, the tattoos and everything. You were perfect. Now he's done. But we'll see. Maybe he can bounce back. Like you say, he's only 31.
That's it. And he's lost to some tough people. Try to cut down extra weight class. He's lost to Rob Font. He lost to Kai Kara-France, who now we know is the
real
truth.
Deal.
And he really hasn't fought since. He hasn't fought in a year and a half. He's taken a lot of losses recently to Dillashaw, those two fights. But if he can get back right, and in my opinion, he should never went wrong. Dillashaw in those two fights, and what we've now seen from Dillashaw, the suspension coming back, his body breaking down. I don't need to see anything else. You are a product of the PEDs.
Yeah.
Because you were an average fighter when you were in Demetrius's weight class and you went through the Ultimate Fighter or whatever the fuck they had to go through. Yeah, you lost and all this stuff. And then you came out of nowhere when you went to Team Alpha Male and bulked up and just started rocking people's blocks and stopping it was Renan Barão and all this shit. And it was just like, where'd this guy get power? And he moves like Dominic Cruz and all this stuff. And you did crazy shit that you've never done before. And then you pop, you come back clean, and you got no arms.
Yeah.
After taking 3 years off. Nah, fam. You were strictly PED laced. And you wrecked Cody Garbrandt's career. Wrecked Renan Barão's career.
Yeah. I mean, you go to
Barão was never the same.
Hey, Conor called it. He's a rat.
That's it.
He was right.
That's it. And you were taking people's careers.
Yep.
So, yeah, no, I mean, it's shitty, but that's what happened to Garbrandt. Hopefully this time away can give him that rejuvenation. Because, again, 31 so young. And then fight I'm looking forward to, Bo Nickel, Jamie Pickett.
I mean, we know Bo Nickel's going to murder him, right?
Jamie Pickett ain't an easy out, though.
He's not, but Bo Nickel's it's the same thing we saw with Khamzat Chimaev when we first saw him. We were like, uh-oh, this guy's different.
Yeah.
Bo Nickel's on that trajectory. Maybe we're fooled, right? But I think
Pickett's been stopped 3 of his last 4.
Yeah, I think Bo Nickel, he's the biggest favorite on this card, which is crazy. It's his UFC debut. But they know what they're doing. This is brilliant matchmaking. It's like, hey, we got a guy who's got a name. Bo Nickel makes his debut. We convince people, it's like, oh, it's a seasoned veteran. Maybe we can get the better of him. And then Bo Nickel beats the shit out of him. And then we're all like, Bo Nickel. That's what's about to happen. Bo Nickel.
Smart.
Probably first round stoppage.
And then Jalen Turner, who I don't believe we've been able to link with. It got a little bit past the time. I'll see. If he wins, maybe UFC can double up on guests coming next week. It'd be cool to talk to someone post-fight instead of just pre-fight all the time. But Jalen Turner versus Gamrot.
So this is it was supposed to be Dan Hooker, and it immediately said, oh, Jalen's going to murder him.
Yeah, I thought Jalen would have a good shot agaast Dan Hooker.
The Tarantula, he's long, he's rangy, he's strong. He's got all the tools. He's won like 6 in a row. Yep. You're going in against Gamrot, who is he's good. He's good in all the areas that Jalen Turner needs to be good. Yep. Gamrot can equal him in those areas. And I believe Gamrot's he's a favorite heading into this fight, even though it's relatively short notice.
As he should be.
I'm gonna pick Jalen. The momentum that he's had, I feel like Jalen's truly like the diamond in the rough type, where it's just all coming together for him as a young fighter at the right time. And you can't
6'3".
That's what I was gonna say. You can't avoid that.
155 pounds.
You can't deny those those tangibles, the reach, the length. It's hard to deal with. And then you got pop behind it. I'm gonna pick Jalen Turner. Maybe decision. I wouldn't be surprised if he got a finish against Gamrot.
That's tough.
I'm gonna pick Jalen Turner.
Yeah, I'm gonna give Gamrot by decision just because I think Gamrot's really good.
He is.
And as short of a notice it is for Gamrot, and you're dealing with someone that tall, that rangy, it's tough for Jalen Turner to be preparing for one guy.
Oh, absolutely.
Like Dan Hooker, and then switch completely to Gamrot. Gamrot necessarily wasn't preparing for anyone. You just come into the fight, you'd be like, fuck it, I know I'll fight. Turner was specifically preparing for somebody. And then now you got to switch it over. I never liked those style fights. So small hiccup for Jalen Turner. But
We'll see.
I think it goes the distance. I think Gamrot gets the decision. Next up, Jeff Neal versus Rachmanov.
Yeah, I mean, this is a Jeff Neal fight. He's just a strong dude who can wrestle. I mean, Jeff is. I'm not saying he's a guy that's like on the cusp of breaking out, but he's one of those guys you just don't want to fight because if he touches you on the chin, it's gonna hurt. If he wants to wrestle, you can do that too. He's got a solid chin himself. I'm picking Jeff Neal. I'll go by decision, but him stopping people never surprises me because he's strong as fuck.
Rachmanov submits him.
Nah.
Debut submits Cowboy Oliveira. Next up, gets another submission. Neil Magny subs him. Then knocks out Carlston Harris. I think this is that jump.
I mean, okay.
Where undefeated records aren't everything.
No.
I feel like this is where they're testing him.
This
because Neil's not a gatekeeper, but they're just putting him in this role. Like,
yes.
We're going to jump you 2 steps up to see what we have here. Because welterweight's a whole different level. So it's like, yo, you're going to sink or swim right now. And Rachmanov got it. And again, I understand like being 28, it's a difference. 28 to 32 is a huge difference in this sport. So people trip up and, sometimes people get the better of you right now. But no, I think he's just so big for that division.
Well, look.
And Jeff Neal's strong, but so big for the division.
Rachmanov is he's a significant favorite. Like I said it in passing, like Jeff Neal was just going to beat him. Rachmanov was like a minus 500. Like he should beat him. Like he should beat him. But there's something that tells me like Jeff could give him some problems. Yeah. I'm not saying Rachmanov is overlooking him. I'm just saying this is not as easy. It's not like the Bo Nickel fight. But I could be completely wrong. It looks like Rachmanov's that next dude. I just wonder if like this is that fight where we think he's next, and then Jeff Neal cashed him. Was like, oh shit. I like Rachmanov.
Would this be your betting upset of the week if you had to
if
bet
I had to
a
pick
dog?
one? Yeah, if I had to pick a dog with that kind of a betting line to throw some money on, and a lot of people tell I'm crazy. A lot of people think Rachmanov looks pretty unbeatable, but I was like, you know what? Take a flyer on Jeff Neal. I'm gonna pick him. I'm not confident in it at all, but I'm gonna pick him because I need to see Rachmanov. I just want to see more of him, and I feel like he could get pushed here, and something could happen. But I could be totally wrong. Rachmanov could dominate, submit him in 2 rounds.
Agree. Shevchenko versus Grasso.
Dude, I've said this from the beginning. When Alexa Grasso got interviewed, and they were basically like, hey, you're going to get this fight. She was like, I might need another fight. That doesn't sound like championship.
No.
And I feel like Shevchenko's in a place now where it was like, yeah, that Talia Santos fight, y'all still talking about that like I'm not that good. I need to remind you. So I need to feast. And Alexa Grasso is the perfect woman to feast on because she should be here. Aaron Blanchfield should be cage side for this fight. Alexa Grasso, where's she going to beat her at?
No, she's not better anywhere.
Like, there's nowhere.
Can she survive? That's my take.
No.
I think she gets
fight?
stopped. No.
She's not as strong as Talia Santos. She's not as strong as Jessica Andrade. She's not defensively capable of preventing Shevchenko from doing what she wants. Nah, man. And it's crazy because Shevchenko is the second biggest favorite on the card. Bo Nickel is the biggest favorite on this card. Shevchenko's a minus 700. But I think everybody looks at Talia Santos' fight and was like, we figured it out.
No.
Talia's just really good. And Shevchenko still won that fight. But it was close. I think Shevchenko knows that. If there's any woman in this sport that looks at like performances, listens to people, and was like, "Oh, you think I'm not good? I'm gonna kill that person."
That's it. Shevchenko doesn't play with her food either.
It's just like, and she's not even a person. She's an obstacle.
Yep.
She's gonna trample. Like, I mean, this might get rough in a hurry.
I agree. And then main event, Jon Jones, Cyril Gane.
All right. So here's a couple of things. The last time Jon Jones fought, Joe Burrow was playing for LSU.
That's not that long ago.
But 3 years is a long time. He had just declared for the NFL draft. LaMelo Ball wasn't in the league. It wasn't a pandemic yet.
Yowzers.
Like, these are the last times that Jon Jones fought. Kim and Kanye were still married. Like, that's the last time Jon Jones fought. He still is the youngest UFC champion of all time. Now, he goes in a fight where he's 3 years older than his opponent. The only other time this happened was when he fought Anthony Smith. He was older than Anthony Smith by a year. Anthony Smith had way more mileage on him. But John, if anybody's seen him, he's like 250 pounds.
Yep. Can't believe he's 35 years old.
Some people will go, well, what about those last 3 fights? Anthony Smith, Thiago Santos, Dominic Reyes. John didn't look great in any of those fights. The fight before that was Alexander Gustafsson. We absolutely murdered Alexander Gustafsson. Some people say John's lost a step. Maybe. Or the motherfucker just wasn't motivated.
That's it. Yep.
So, because Anthony Smith, John wasn't thinking about no damn Anthony Smith. Thiago Santos, the guy with the hammer on his chest, nah, I ain't worried about him. Dominic Reyes, that up-and-comer, that's cool. To a lot of people, he lost that fight, but I don't think he was motivated. Jon Jones talked about moving to heavyweight since 2013. This has been on his mind for 10 years. Now he's here. He's bigger. The problem with this fight is for Cyril Gane, more than Jon, what is Jon Jones? And what I mean by that is, what has he worked on in 3 years is a long time for somebody who's that talented. He's not set in his ways, right? So he could be a striking dynamo. We don't fucking know. What we do know is Francis Ngannou took Cyril down. Francis Ngannou is not a wrestler.
He had no knees.
Cyril Gane is also a small heavyweight. He's weighed 247 in his last 3 fights. In all 3 of those fights, he was outweighed by double digits. He lost to Ngannou. He knocked Tai Tuivasa to hell and Derek Lewis.
And Ty almost had him out of here.
Ty hurt him. So it's not like John's, I don't want to say he's not fighting a heavyweight, but Cyril's not a big dude. John might be bigger than him on fight night. I can't not pick Jon Jones in this fight. I have to. Because 3 years of you working on your craft, and yeah, you're 35, but like we said before, some of these guys just hit their stride at 35. A guy who has been able to hide himself and mask his skills, and then you're fighting the greatest fighter of all time, and you don't know what's different about him. He's not 40. He's 35. Only 20 UFC fights. I don't know what Cyril has to knock him out. He has to.
That's the only way. Yeah, that's the only way to beat this.
The other stat that's important is that John didn't get a single takedown in his last 2 fights. Like, Dominic Reyes stuffed him the whole fight. Thiago Santos did as well. Stuffed him the whole fight. And people look at that. Here's a nut stat. John has never been knocked down in a UFC fight. Never. He has been on his back for a grand total of 46 seconds.
My man fought Cormier twice.
A grand total of 46 seconds. 0.2% bottom control percentage against. By far the best. What is Cyril going to do? He has to knock him out. You immediately have to test John's chin. But then you don't want to get too close, because if he takes you down, you're fucked.
It's over.
Because John still has the biggest wingspan in the heavyweight division.
And it's not, you're not looking at this like Francis Ngannou, who, again, with no knees, took you down and just kind of laid on you.
He didn't know what to do.
When John takes you down,
he knows what to do.
You're in hell. Like, it's over.
Because not only does he take you down, the way he transitions into mount and how fierce of a striker he is when he gets on top of you, because he doesn't hit you with his hands.
Nope.
Elbows, like, he's creative. He puts you in hell. Like, think about the people he's beat. Lyoto Machida, when people were like, Leo's really good. John was like, nah, he's not that good. Standing guillotine. Wow. Nobody thought Chael Sonnen was good. We're not going to count that.
Evans.
Yeah, Rashad Evans. Rashad thought he could strike with him. John just stayed on the outside. Daniel Cormier, look, you know, the news has come out that if USADA was around, that John would have never popped. That would have been a no contest. We saw him. He kicked Daniel Cormier in the head.
Yep.
Because John is a good reader of opponents. He has every intangible that a fighter needs. At first, I was like, man, this is a really tough fight, and it still is. But I think there's just too much time, and John has been able to watch Cyril Gane and study him. My only question is John disappointed he's not fighting Francis Ngannou? Because you think about it, you've been waiting this whole time. It was either Stipe or Francis. Those are the only 2 people on your radar. Stipe, we don't know what he's doing. Fighting fires, I guess. I don't know. Ngannou's no longer with the company. Now you're fighting the guy who lost to Ngannou for a title that's vacant. It's not the same.
No.
You're like, you win the championship, you're like, eh. And the real question is, like, if I'm John, Francis, come home. I need to beat you. Because if you beat him, obviously Curtis Blades is a tough matchup. We'll have to see how John looks against Cyril to really figure that out.
Yeah.
Who else is there?
Stipe. Stipe has to come home. Stipe is home. You got to leave home.
Yeah, but I'm saying like there's Stipe, there's Curtis Blades, there's Tom Aspinall on the come up. John's gonna run the same problem he had at light heavyweight.
Yeah, who just beat the Black Beast? Or excuse me, Tai Tuivasa. Someone just knocked him.
Tom Aspinall. No, Cyril knocked him out, and then was it Aspinall?
Somebody just beat him. He just got knocked out again. Derek Lewis just got knocked out again by someone from Russia.
Sergey Pavlovich.
Yeah, Pavlovich. So he's climbing. Oh, he's actually the alternate.
He's the alternate
for this weekend's fight. So you have some options, but I think Jon's motivation in this fight is the viewers.
Yes.
The experts. In his head, y'all are doubting me. You're counting me out. Watch this. It doesn't matter who is in front of him here.
No.
And I take that with Francis as well. Like, Francis has a puncher's chance all the time.
Huge.
But Jon probably takes his ass down and just wrestles him and stretches his ass out and then makes him tap, which I think this is how it's going to go. Because I think as good as Jon is a striker, and I think he'll try to strike a little bit with Cyril Gane, he's going to bring him to the ground and say, there's no one like me. No one like me here. And
yeah,
it was a little different. At 205, I think he knew no one could hurt him. He'd be cute, like just stand up, elbow. No, I think here he's going to be like, no, I'm going to take you down. I'm going to show you that I'm a heavyweight, that I could bully you. I think we see him not look better as a striker. I think he'll look similar as a striker. The leg kicks at the distance, all that stuff, that spinning elbows when he can. But I think he sits back. It was very poignant when he got kicked out of Jackson Wing for a quick second. He went and trained with Henry Cejudo, wrestling to the core. And you see when he's gone, the other person they believe is the pound-for-pound great, which is Khabib. You see how he dominated people on the ground. I think the biggest difference in the 3 years he's been gone is how much wrestling has taken over MMA and grappling. And if you're an extremely good grappler, there's no one to stick with you. And I think he looked at that and he said, oh, it's time to get busy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think we see the best version of wrestling Jon Jones.
Well, we have to.
We've seen.
If Jon tries to get cute and strikes, he might get knocked out. He might lose his fight.
Good.
Like, this is not the fight for you to go, I'm going to beat you at your own game.
No.
This is not that fight. This is the fight where you go in, it's like, you remind everybody how good I am. Because think about this. While Jon's been gone, he had to listen to Israel Adesanya talk shit.
Yep.
He had to listen to all these people talk about him. You think he wasn't taking stock in what everybody said about him? Because Jon manufactures enemies. Like he said it today. Oh, me and Daniel Cormier would be cool. Well, then why are you such a dick? Because I had to manufacture that energy to beat that guy. He didn't say that, but I know that's what it was. He's not looking at Cyril as like, he doesn't have to manufacture that energy because his energy, like you said, is directed to the fans and his detractors. I don't think he could get cute, and then I don't think he will. I think he's got to make a statement. Because if you just trample Cyril Gane, because more importantly, you trample Cyril Gane, you're number one pound-for-pound fighter all over again.
Oh, again, yeah, easily.
Like, if it's close, yeah, we might say, can't put you past Alexander or Makhachev. Like, might have to chill. But if you come back and it's the old Jon Jones, there's no question. Because that resume is, again, I mentioned, like 17, 20 opponents, only 3 are still in the UFC, but at least you beat former world champions. You beat everybody.
Hall of Famers.
You sent people packing, and they were never the same again. You beat Cyril Gane, you're the champion, and I know the next thing on Jon's mind is like, God, how do I legitimize this championship because I didn't beat the best? You call out Francis Ngannou, but you dominate Cyril, you're number one pound-for-pound fighter. That's that.
What's the official prediction?
Jon by a third-round submission.
Ooh, I'm going Jon second round sub. But I think he gets him to the ground, chokes his ass out.
Yeah, I think he'll choke him out, or it'll just be some filthy ground and pound.
Ooh.
Because, I mean, you know, he ain't going to throw no 12-6 elbows, but
no,
he's going to scrape him. If he gets that opportunity, if Jon is muscling Cyril Gane against the cage, it'll be that beautiful leg trip that he does.
Yeah.
He'll probably keep Cyril at range with
I've
those
seen him take down Cormier several times.
Again, leg trip.
Yep.
Puts his hands up, gets right under in the underhooks. Like the way he switches it is beautiful. He'll use the oblique kicks to keep Cyril because everybody hates him. Like the oblique kicks should be illegal because they'll blow your knee out. Yep. But he's going to use them. because he don't want Cyril to kick. And then, he'll get in close, wrap his hands around him, and then he'll be like, this is how strong Jon Jones is. You'll be like, oh, shit. All right.
Yep. It'd be a whole different world. So should be entertaining fight this weekend. Make sure you guys check out UFC 285. We'll both be there here in Vegas, so that's going to be fun. We appreciate you guys for listening. As always, check out our boxing and pro wrestling shows later on in the week. For everyone here at Blue Wire Studios and the Wynn Resort in Las Vegas, follow us on social media. Almost forgot about that. At Corner Podcast _ on Twitter, Corner Club for Life on Instagram, at Corner Pod on TikTok. Check out the YouTube as well. For myself, for Andreas Hale, we're out.
Peace.
On the